In the near future, the United States will be engulfed in civil war. The war between the federal government, led by the third-term president, and separatist movements has put the United States on the edge of the abyss. The president is rehearsing his speech to be broadcast on TV. He claims victory is near as the Western forces, WF, led by Texas and California, are close to the White House. He promises his followers that once the rebel states are overthrown, he will rebuild the United States. The famous journalist Lee is taking photos of the screen in her room at a hotel. At the same time, the sound of a big explosion outside attracts her attention. The next day, she goes out into the riot-filled streets with her colleague Joel. As people protest the lack of water, she puts on her special journalist vest and photos everything she sees. The protesting crowd is so angry that even the violent action of the police cannot calm them down. In the crowd, the police hit a young girl photographer in the face, and Lee pulled her away. At the very beginning, Jessie recognizes Lee, who is a famous photographer, and she gives her her vest. Suddenly, a deadly explosion shakes the crowd, and many people are killed. While the suffocating sound of the explosion fills the space, Lee takes out her camera and takes terrible photos of this tragic event. Later, Lee meets her colleague, reporter Joel, and veteran journalist Sam. Lee and Joel discuss the situation. Sam explains that the Western forces were not stopped, but their advance was delayed, so they would reach Washington soon. Lee informs Sam that they are going to D.C. They are supposed to prepare their main report for photographing and interviewing the president, who is under siege in Washington before he is captured and killed by the soldiers of the Western forces. Sam considers this a risky decision, but Lee believes they will get there sooner than anyone else. In addition, they have to travel thousands of kilometers to reach Washington, which is a big challenge for them, despite the Civil War and dangers. Despite Sam's objections, it seems that Lee's decision is serious, and now it has to be seen whether Sam will join them. Tired, Lee goes to her room, but the receptionist informs him that the elevator is broken. Moments later, Jessie finds her and thanks her for helping her, claiming that Lee is one of her heroes from now on. Before leaving, she advises Jessie to wear a bulletproof vest instead of a t-shirt if she sees her again. Lying in the bathtub, she repeatedly recalls the gruesome scenes of street murders that cloud her thoughts. When she leaves the hotel the next morning, she is shocked to see Jessie in the car beside Sam. She angrily pulls Joel aside and asks him to explain about her presence. Joel says she's so cool, and when she joined them last night, she asked to go with them, but Lee thinks she's a kid, so she agrees, on the condition that whatever happens, she just comes with them to Charlottesville. They start their journey, and soon they come to a big accident where the vehicles on the road have been shot, and it is not clear what happened to the passengers because no one is there. A little further, Joel crosses a pass through the checkpoint by showing his journalist card, and further along the road, realizing the dangers ahead, they decide to stop at a gas station for refueling. The armed men there agree to allow them to refuel in exchange for $300 Canadian. While Joel is fueling the car, Jessie says she will check around, and one of the gunmen follows her. After that, Lee joins them, and a scary scene appears for Jessie. Two people hanging by their hands, clearly suffering severe torture. The gunman explains that these are looters, and he asks Jessie to decide their fate, kill them immediately or let them suffer. Jessie is shocked and fearful as Lee unexpectedly asks him to stand near the two of them for a group photo. Later, as they drive away from the gas station, Jessie sadly says that she was so shocked that she forgot to tell him not to shoot them. She didn't even bring her camera to take a photo. Lee calmly reminds her that they don't ask questions. Their job is to capture the moment. She reminds her that if she wants to be a journalist, she has to endure this, because this is nothing compared to the events ahead. The group continues its journey through ruined cities littered with dead bodies. In one of the fields, Lee asks Joel to stop the vehicle, then directs Jessica to the crashed helicopter and asks her to take some photos. During the photo shoot, Jessie talks about her father, who is indifferent to the events and pretends that nothing happened in the country. She apologizes for intruding on their trip, but Lee interrupts, insisting that she doesn't care what Jessie thinks or feels. Lee worries about her and what might happen to her, but Jessie believes it was her choice. Jessica then asks if Lee is taking photos of the moment she was shot, and Lee replies, "What do you think?" They camp for the night, and Lee informs Sammy that she has always wanted her photos to be a warning, but it didn't happen. Sam reminds her of when she was Jesse's age and asks her to take more care of the girl, showing that he is worried about her. Joel joins them, ignores their conversation, and says hearing these shooting sounds is very exciting. Joel then joins Jesse and informs her she is staying here, which is relatively safer. Still, she is adamantly against it and has no intention of hiding from danger. After that, he is willing to stay by her side all night if she doesn't fall asleep, but she respectfully says there is no need. The next morning, the team arrives in a town where opposing forces are fiercely firing deadly shots at each other. By joining one of the groups, Lee and Jesse take photos one after the other and capture the horror and violence of the images. While one of the troops is shot, Jesse fearfully but bravely tries to capture the photo. They follow a group of forces trying to clear the building and try to capture most of the movement. A moan from a wounded person is heard on the upper floor, and as soon as they arrive, the forces kill him immediately. Sam calmly watches the execution of people, while Jesse captures the moment just as indifferently and this time without fear, and Lee looks down on her. Later, they move on and arrive at a refugee camp, where a military local soldier informs them that they can get food, but no empty tent is not for them. People camped in the former stadium and kids had fun and played. Moments later, Lee brings Jessie food and admits that her efforts on the road have impressed her. Jessie knows that Lee became known around the world for her photos of school massacres, yet she asks her what her story is. She explains that her parents also live on a farm and prefer not to react to the Civil War, just like Jessie's father. Jessie then shows how she looks at the photos using her phone, and Lee admits that out of 30 photos, usually only one is good. Then she thinks Jessie's shot of the dying soldier is great. People spend the night together with each other. The next morning, the team continue through the ruined and smoke-filled cities, and Jessie shows that she is getting bolder by the moment. Soon, they enter a town untouched by war, making them wonder. The group enters a clothing store, where the salesperson offers them to try on anything they like. When Joel asks her about America's situation, she says that they simply agreed to ignore the war and don't like to get involved. Jessie offers Lee a dress and forces her to try it on to take a photo of her. She waits for Lee to smile, then takes a photo because she thinks Lee's smile is charming. Lee leaves the shop and joins Sam, believing that this peaceful place has reminded her of long-forgotten memories. Sam tells her to check the roof. This place has not been spared from the Civil War developments either. They move on the road, and Sam imagines the president's fate as that of Gaddafi, Mussolini, and Ceausescu. Lee believes that just being alive is enough for him. Hours later, they arrive at a town where a dead soldier has been horribly killed at the beginning of the road. They are hesitant to continue. However, Lee looks around to ensure they are not threatened, so they decide to cross. As the vehicle moves slowly, someone fires at them. Journalists stop behind a truck that is a little ahead. Moments later, they carefully get out of the car, and it turns out that a sniper and his assistant are lurking. They admit that they don't know who the shooter is, but whoever it is very professional, and they are trying to neutralize him. While Jessie captures these moments with her camera, Lee lies on the grass and stares at the beauty of the flowers. Eventually, the sniper kills him. The way is opened, and the journalists continue their journey on a forest road. Sam tells Jessie to take a break, and minutes later, Lee notices a car following them. She decides to slow down and let it pass. However, when the pursuer reaches her, it turns out that they are reporters and their colleagues from Hong Kong. One of them, Tony, goes up to Lee's car while driving. Even though it is a dangerous idea, Jessie imitates his action and goes to the Chinese journalist's car. Their speed is so high that they quickly move away from Lee. After discussing their affairs, the reporters suddenly notice that their car has disappeared from the road. Lee's face looks worried, and they reach a farm a little further. They see the empty car of the Chinese journalist in front of them and realize that none of them are there. Detouring off the main road, Lee sees Jessie and the Chinese journalist being held captive by two gunmen. She and Joel observe soldiers burying a large number of civilian bodies in a pit and become extremely worried. They know these are criminals because there is no regular army in the area, and Sam warns them that confronting them could lead to death. Lee asks Sammy to stay here, and then they slowly go to the soldiers to rescue Jessie and the Chinese reporter. Joel explains that they are journalists who were passing by and tries to convince him. Still, the armed soldier suddenly shoots the Chinese reporter and then starts questioning them. Jessie is shocked, but the gunman still calmly asks them what state they are from. He locks on Tony and immediately kills him calmly, as soon as he realizes that he is from Hong Kong. It becomes clear that he is going to kill them all. Suddenly, Sam intervenes with the vehicle and collides with the attackers. In addition, Jesse falls into the pit with them and moves among the corpses, which scares her. While completely shocked, Joel manages to catch her, and the three of them quickly jump into the car and run away. An assailant sees them fleeing and shoots at them as the car drives away. Jesse and Joel scream under the influence of what happened to them, and when they get a little further away, they realize that Sam has been shot. They put him in the back seat, Joel replaced him, and they sped down the road. Night comes, and the car passes through the burnt forest. Everyone is upset, and Sam is breathing hard. They are mesmerized by the flaming trees on both sides of the road. Near morning, they finally arrive at the Western Force military camp and realize they have lost Sammy, and Joel cries out for him. They meet with their colleagues and find that the government forces have effectively surrendered, so their dream may never come true. Joel believes he and Lee were late and missed the story, so Sam's death was in vain. Lee meets Jesse by the river to talk a little about Sammy. She claims that during the last few days, she was not so scared and did not feel so alive. While Lee wipes Sam's blood from the back seat, Western forces head to Washington to deliver the final blow to the current federal government and capture the president. At night, journalists arrive at the White House and capture every moment with their cameras. A real battle is going on in the streets of the city. Lee and Jesse depict the faces of soldiers, their courage and death, and the successive attacks of Western forces on the White House continue. For a moment, Joel's smile comforts Jesse and makes her laugh. After that, they are practically on the front line chasing a group that clears roadblocks and infiltrates the presidential residence. Western forces are encircling the White House by eliminating the last soldiers of the government, and now Jesse is bolder than ever to accept the risk in order not to miss a moment. One of the soldiers informs Joel that the president is definitely in the White House and will be killed. He also advises Lee not to miss the golden shot. Suddenly, the president's security team wants to remove him from the White House. The soldiers' deadly gunfire stops the cars carrying the president one after the other. And moments later, Lee realizes that it was a trap and the president is still in the White House. Journalists enter the White House, and a little later, the soldiers of the Western forces arrive there. Dead bodies can be seen all over the floor. Everything around is broken and scattered, but no living person can be seen. The journalists follow a group of soldiers who begin a more thorough search of the White House, and soon they arrive at the press conference room, where a female negotiator confronts them as she surrenders. She promises to take them to the president, but first, she demands the president's life. Ignoring her demands, the soldiers simply shoot her and move on. A little further, they start shooting with the president's guards in the corridors leading to the president's room. Lee is horrified by what is happening and takes almost no photos, unlike Jesse, who doesn't miss a moment without fear and boldly walks in step with the soldiers. At one point, Jesse loses control and stands in the middle of the corridor to take photos of the attackers. Lee sees the soldier raise his weapon, so she rushes to Jesse to cover her. Jesse, who is lying on the ground, captures the last moments of her hero's life, and a second later, Lee is killed by the guards and falls to the ground. However, Jesse gets up and follows Joel to the president's office, where the soldiers finally pull out the president hiding under his desk. Joel stops the execution and tries to question the dictator who destroyed his country, and the president just begs not to be killed. That is enough. The soldiers shoot him, and Jesse takes photos of the last seconds of the US president's life. In the closing moments of this civil war, Jesse takes a final shot of smiling WF soldiers posing with the president's corpse. Civil War warns us how quickly the world can go crazy. In fact, the future is incredibly unpredictable, an incident in which people may destroy each other without any mercy due to the different ideologies they are influenced by.